Welcome to Fantasy Football Hub. I'm joined today by the big man himself, BigManBakar's. We've had a little bit of a break from FPL. Did the World Cup game go okay for you, or was it no joy?
I had more fun watching the World Cup than playing the fantasy game, to be very honest with you. The
Yeah,
game was a bit of a farce. But the World Cup was absolutely incredible to watch,
yeah,
especially the final. You can't ask for anything more than that.
yeah.
Two absolute legends of the game. One is already past his peak. The other is a legend in the making,
It
going head
was
to head. Absolutely incredible. I don't think I've seen a better World Cup game in my life.
no, me neither. I
That
don't
too,
think.
that too, that too in a final. Absolute pleasure to watch.
I think
I mean,
Argentina
you
that whole World Cup were just insane. When you think of the
uh,
Netherlands game, you think of that. The drama was
exactly,
just incredible. But
exactly. And even if, for example, if I was, if the game was better, I still don't think it would have mattered anyway because you have to put things into perspective. And when such quality of football is being played, then you don't really care about your fantasy points.
But we're back to the depths of Southampton versus Brighton, Bakar. Back to club football at its finest. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, yeah. Let's go.
Yeah, no, it was nice. But look, good to be back. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. We'll be churning again now. So do subscribe, do like the video. You can find me and Bakar, our handles below. Let's go and build your initial draft for Game Week 17, Bakar. This might change. You'll probably put it on your Twitter, which is on the screen. You might put a wee article out on Hub later in the week. But let's start with the goalkeeper. So who is your goalkeeper?
My keeper is Kepa.
Kepa.
He was in incredible form before the World Cup. He got injured, but there's news that he's back in training already. So there's a good chance that he's going to start Game Week 17 and beyond. And to get a top six goalkeeper at just 4.5 million, I think he's a bit of a steal. And I don't think he will get dropped anytime soon, given how well he's been playing. Um, Another big positive for him is the fact that Chelsea have a double in Game Week 19. So he's a bit of an obvious pick, and he will be the template goalkeeper for a lot of other teams. The only realistic option I see is to kind of double up on the Leicester goalkeepers because they're cheap. But I just think it makes too much sense to go with Kepa if he's fit.
I think something I want to bring up here quickly, Bakar, for people who maybe aren't absolute experts of the game. They're maybe tuning back into FPL. It's been a while. In terms of when to make your transfers and when we need to be building this team, do we leave it as close to the deadline as possible? I know obviously the tiebreaker is going to be the total transfer, so we don't want people tinkering and tinkering and tinkering over the days and changing in and out and messing about their team because if they end up drawing on points, they'll be the worst off. So you're better making as few transfers as possible in this window. As we've been told, it's going to be a tiebreaker. Outside that, in terms of team values or anything, is that a consideration or anything else people need to think about?
There will be no price changes until the deadline, so people can tinker as much as they want. But as you say, it's better if they leave it till, let's say, the very last day, not till the very last 5 or 10 minutes, because we
Yeah.
know FPL and their service they don't have a reputed history of going down well with us. But in terms of that, yeah, making the transfers, let's say, one day before the deadline or on the final days should be fine.
Cool. Second keeper, who have we got?
This one is obvious. It's Danny Ward. I didn't have him in the first half of the season, and it killed me. It's funny saying that a Leicester goalkeeper who was absolutely abysmal in the first couple of months turned out to be a season wrecker for me. But I didn't have him. He was very highly owned, and Leicester went on a run of what was it, 6 clean sheets in 8 games or something like that, where he went absolutely ballistic with his alls and. I'm not going to make that same mistake. And at his price, he's going to be starting for the foreseeable future. So he's a good backup to own.
He was almost like a troll of the community. We were making fun of him, and then he threw it back in our faces. So what a story. On the defence, who's your first defender? Who's the most nailed?
Um, that's an interesting question. My first defender should be the most expensive one. That's Joao Cancelo. There is a bit of a debate in the FPL community as to whether we should pick him or not. I do have him in my squad simply because City are the go-to team for clean sheets. Their XGC is incredible. Cancelo hasn't really hit the attacking heights that we usually see from him. Generally, this season he hasn't been that great in terms of attacking threat, but I still think he's the most nailed. off the lot, which in itself is a huge um, plus in itself, and it makes him worth the premium almost. City will have two back-to-back doubles in game week 20 most likely, and then in 23 as well. So that's another factor to take into consideration. And there's also the fact that if it doesn't really go well, then you can swap him to someone like a Trent or Robertson if they're in form. The price point for a premium defender is something I feel very comfortable with.
Yeah, I think it's an easy pivot away, but an easy placeholder considering the fact that they've got those two doubles. Who's the next most nailed?
Again, this is fitness dependent. This is Reece James, who I have in my draft as the second most expensive defender. I'm not entirely sure whether he's going to be fit to start, but again, there have been positive news regarding him that we hear, and we have seen in the past that when he plays, he is Chelsea's main outlet. For creativity, they tend to look for them. Even early on in the season, when he was fit, he was second for big chance and one was only to Sterling. So he is a huge part of how Chelsea play and their attack. And I don't mind paying 5.8 million for him. Going forward, especially considering the fact that Chelsea have a very obliging fixture schedule to begin with. The Bournemouth, Forest, Crystal Palace, and the double in Gameweek 19 as well, where they take on Fulham as part of the two fixtures that they have. So, yeah, I mean, starting with two Chelsea defenders is something I'm fairly comfortable with. I mean, Kepa and James.
Yeah, I like it. Just need those yellow flags to go away, but I'm sure we're confident enough.
And another important thing regarding James, just want to forget, is that when in game week 19, which is Chelsea's double, they're playing City, then they have an FA Cup fixture against City as well, and then they have Fulham. So there's a good chance that he could actually get his rest in the FA Cup fixture, and he might actually end up playing the favorable fixture against Fulham, which is something which really tempts me. If it was the other way around, I would have probably questioned my choice. But given the fact that Chelsea have the double spaced out relatively decently in terms of rest and rotation time, I think he should be okay to start.
Unreal. Who's our third defender?
It's Kieran Trippier. I don't think there's much debate in this one. He's in every single team that I see these days, and so was the case early in the season as well. I just don't see any reason to move away on set pieces, playing for a great defense.
Yeah,
let's go on.
Yeah,
what else do I say?
Yeah, who's next?
The next two slots are actually slots which I'm tinkering with in my squad, and I'm not as settled on them as I am with the rest of my squad. My first choice of defender is Ben White. He's the cheapest Arsenal defender you can get in 4.6. He's an absolute steal. To be very honest with you, I think he should be priced at 5 million or higher, but at 4.6, he offers a great route into the Arsenal offense. I like owning him just because of the fact that he rotates well with Trippier, because when Trippier has poor fixtures, White can come in. I am not a huge fan of having an Arsenal defender to begin with, but I like him as a rotation option because with Trippier, he rotates very well.
Okay. White's in. I like it. A lot of people are going White or Gabriel, or I've even seen Saliba. But White is there. Who is our fifth defender?
My fifth defender is cheap. It's Bueno from Wolves. He was starting before the World Cup. And at 3.9 million, I won't really see a reason to move away from him because he's likely to be the 15th player in my squad. And if he is someone who is starting, that's enough for me. Before the start of the video, you were actually questioning me as to whether I would pick a Man United defender. So that's something I want to bring up here as well. The thing with the United defender is that I love their opening fixtures, but given how I'm set up in my team, I will have no room to play them in my 11. For example, I'll have to bench Trippier, which in itself is questionable. And after the first three fixtures, I would not want a Man United defender because their fixtures turn from that point onwards. So that's why I don't have a Man United defender in my squad.
Because I was saying to you just beforehand, and I've said it in a couple of videos recently that I really like the look of a couple of them. I love the fixtures. Picking one of their wing backs, Dallo or Shaw, whoever looks most likely to be absolutely nailed given the latest news come up Boxing Day. But my point is, I just really like the fixtures. I really like the look of it, but I can see what you're saying, because who would they replace here? You're gonna have to replace Cancelo, James, Trippier, and then like White
Exactly.
looks such good value, and your man Bueno coming into 3.9. Everyone's picking him, so I understand that, and that is a good. I don't know, a good explanation. Maybe I'll have to consider, because I already kind of had a rough draft done in my head, and I'd at least one United defender.
Yeah.
Maybe, whenever I have a million rank, maybe I need to go ballsy and go get rid of Cancelo, come on in, Dallo, be my guy, or something crazy. But maybe it's not the time. We're not even halfway through the season. But
I will give it more
uh,
consideration if, let's say, we heard news from Potter later on in the week that James is not fit to start.
yeah.
That would significantly increase their ownership.
Okay, first midfielder.
First midfielder is Mo Salah, the most expensive one. He's had his rest and he'll be raring to go. I know he's unlikely to represent value in terms of value for money because we won't be captaining him early on, but I just don't see a reason not to start with him because I'll feel very uncomfortable without him, to be very honest. Anytime I go without Mo Salah, I feel very uncomfortable on this. Again, at a time when other teams have players who have had a strenuous World Cup. For example, Spurs are one of them. I'm avoiding Spurs because I'm not really confident about them. For example, Perisic played late in the tournament. Richarlison got injured. I'm not really sure how well they will line up to begin with, but I would rather use those funds to go to someone like a Salah to begin with. Having said that, I don't have a third city in my draft. This disclaimer is this is my initial draft, not my final draft. So, I mean, I do have the option to swap someone like a Salah to De Bruyne if I feel like it. And I do think De Bruyne's ownership will probably be higher than Salah's as well. But as of now, I feel more comfortable with Mo Salah in my squad simply because he's been rested.
Yep, true. I'm a bit of a De Bruyne fan, but everyone picking Salah's giving me FOMO. Who's your second midfielder?
My second midfielder in terms of the price is it's Mount. I think my Mount is the second most expensive one. The reason I picked Mount is because Chelsea, as I said earlier, have a great run of fixtures to begin with as well. They have Forest, Bournemouth in their first opening two fixtures, then the double game week. And the good thing with Mount is that with Kovacic injured, he slightly becomes more nailed. I mean, it's hard to second guess Potter, but from the evidence what we've seen so far, Mount has played potentially every single Premier League fixture under him, and others around him have been rested, but he's sort of been one of his favorites. And with Kovacic injured, I think that kind of cements his place in the squad, and with the fixtures in their favor, that should benefit him. The other benefit I like of picking Mount is that we're not really sure about Foden's status in terms of whether he's going to start, whether he's nailed, whether he's not. And since there's a question on the number of minutes that Foden has, we can start with Mount till game week 19 and then swap to Foden for his game week double, game week 20 double.
I like it. Who's our third midfielder?
The third midfielder is Rashford, and I'm very bullish about this pick. I think United are going to start very strongly. Their run of fixtures to begin with is as dreamy as it gets. Nottingham Forest at home, Wolves away, then Bournemouth at home. I can see a couple of hauls in this one, especially the home fixtures are too good to pass up. And just the way United were playing before the World Cup and the vibe around the place is very good, especially now that Ronaldo's out of the picture. I do think they'll come out with a bang and they'll start very well. Their attack seems to be functioning very well. Bruno is in form as well. Anthony, Rashford, Martial should be playing. So I think United will do well, and Rashford, there should be a few holes in him. This is actually an interesting pick because he's sort of my pick over Martinelli, and Martinelli is very highly owned, and I bought him at 6 million as well. So it's slightly questionable, but to be very honest, I am not that sure about Martinelli's opening fixtures, um, especially from an attacking point of view. You look at teams like Brighton, they're playing Brighton, Newcastle, Spurs, and United uh, after game week 17, which are not games which I expect Arsenal to do really well in from an attacking point of view. And there's also the fact to consider that Gabriel Jesus is injured now, so whether the Arsenal attack will flourish as it was early on in the season, I'm not as certain. which is why
Yeah.
I have Rashford over Martinelli, and I think that will I will stick with my gut come the game week 17 deadline.
No, it's interesting. I think that'll throw a few question marks in people's heads because a lot of people feel almost wed to Martinelli because of the value and that there is no option to leave. But the fact that the big man's thinking of doing it might make a few people change their mind. Who is the fourth midfielder?
The next pick is Almiron. I didn't have him in my squad before the World Cup, and that's one of my big regrets because he's such exceptional value, and I don't think there should be any question marks regarding his place in the side. Newcastle's fixtures to begin with are decent as well, and at less than 6 million, Almiron is a very, very cheap route into the Newcastle attack. And to be very honest, he's one of those guys I can see in my team for the long run. Um, and with certain picks, like for example, Rashford, Martinelli, this is a 50-50 pick. Similarly, Mount Fortin is a 50-50 pick, depending on what we hear later in the week. But Almiron, I don't think it's going to go anywhere in my team because I'm very certain that his price is going to represent a lot of value.
Yeah, a lot of people loving him. Great price, great stats. And your fifth pick, is it Andreas?
It is Andres, not just because of what he's offered us early on in the season, but with Almiron on the side, Almiron has Arsenal away in game week 19, while Andres will have a double against
Chelsea and
Palace
Leicester.
and Chelsea. Sorry, Leicester and Chelsea. So he can come in to the side for the double game week in place of Almiron. That's an easy swap for me, and I don't see a reason to change that.
Yeah, you've got a few nice double game week players there for 19. I see you have the triple Chelsea lads, and then obviously Andres. You'll have a nice strong squad by the looks of it, and obviously a couple of transfers in the meantime. Onto the forward line. I'm just going to take the boringness out of it and put Haaland in. He's nailed, I imagine.
Yeah.
Captain for game week 17?
I think has to be. I'll go with him. Fixture's too good to pass up against Leeds. Again, having rested the World Cup, he's the go-to pick for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have two more forwards to pick. Who's first?
Do you mind guessing both of them?
Mitrovic.
Yeah, Mitrovic is in there for the game week 19 double. This is despite the fact that he's actually on 4 yellows. And I mean, you never know. He might get one of those yellows in game week, let's say 18, or even in the first game week 19. But you've simply got to go with what you have. And even though he's playing Chelsea in game week 19, I don't mind that because a lot of his goals this season, actually, he scored 4 goals against the big 6 sides this season. He has a good record against them. So I'm not really that put off by that Chelsea picture. I think he can do well there as well.
I just need to remind people that there's the 12 days of Christmas at Hub, and if you sign up to Hub now, you'll get 12 days free, and you'll also get 30% off your membership. That's a paid membership. I just seen you distract me there, Bakar, because I seen the Hub Cup. It keeps coming up at perfect times when we're doing videos. It popped into the screen. But yeah, 30% off Hub memberships at the minute. So if you're at the top of if you're at the top of your mini league, try and stay there. And if you're at the bottom, try and catch up. One more player, I'm going to guess, and I actually didn't look now. Before we stream, quite often guests will send me through their drafts and stuff, so I have an idea. I purposely don't look because I like to guess. Swear to God, I haven't looked. I'm going to guess Darwin.
Yeah, you read me very well now.
Is it? It was.
Sean.
It was more the budget, I think, that did it for me.
Darwin is absolutely nailed my squad. I mean, he's an XG monster. He's exactly the kind of pick I like having in my squad. It's one who is playing for a top side with great stats. He's going to be nailed in that Liverpool side, especially with Jota, Diaz out. And he's going to be the focal point of the big chances that Liverpool create. So, again, a very easy pick in this situation.
No brainer. So we've got Darwin in. That's your full team. We're going to save this, and I'm going to just tinker around with it a little bit to get your projected points and whatever else. Something to do we recapture things. So Haaland is obviously going to come in. Bueno will be on the bench. Who's your bench?
My bench in the first week is likely to be White, Bueno, and Andreas.
White, Bueno, Andreas, and Kepa will start. Haaland captain. Bakar, that would give you a team rating of 92%, a game week rating of 86%, and projected points of 67.5. We'll round it up to 68 points. If I said to you, you can have 68 points now, Bakar, would you take it or leave it?
I think I will. That seems to be a relatively solid start.
You take it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, everyone watching, have a great Christmas. You can find me at John Nellis. You can find Bakar at BigManBakar's for that final reveal. And again, don't forget about the hub offer. It's in a link in the description. We'll see you very, very soon. Goodbye.